Welcome to this presentation on what is GDPR and how it affects research data. If you're a doctoral or postdoctoral researcher working with participants, surveys, or any personal data, understanding GDPR is essential. This video will help you navigate the basics and apply GDPR principles in your research work. GDPR stands for the General Data Protection Regulation. It's a European Union regulation that came into effect in 2018 and applies to all organizations that handle the personal data of EU citizens, even if the organization is outside the EU. It aims to give individuals more control over their data and to harmonize data privacy laws across Europe. As academic researchers, we need to understand how GDPR applies to our research activities, especially when working with human data. Many doctoral and postdoctoral research projects involve collecting, analyzing, or storing personal data from interviews, surveys, health records, or observational studies. This includes qualitative data, behavioral data, and sometimes sensitive data. Even if your research is non-commercial or anonymized later, GDPR. Now, what counts as personal data? Personal data refers to any information that can directly or indirectly identify an individual. This includes obvious things like names and email addresses, but also IP addresses, device IDs, voice recordings, or even coded identifiers if they can be linked back to a person. In research, even pseudonymized data is still considered personal under GDPR unless it is irreversibly anonymized. Come into special categories of data. Some data is considered especially sensitive. This includes health data, biometric or genetic information, political or religious beliefs, racial or ethnic background, and sexual orientation. These are referred to as special categories under GDPR and require additional protections. In most cases, processing this data requires explicit, documented consent from participants, and a clear justification in your research design. Next is the lawful basis for data use in research. You can't just collect personal data because it's useful. You need a lawful reason. In academic research, the most common lawful bases are informed consent and public interest in scientific research. Consent must be freely given, clearly stated, and participants must be able to withdraw at any time without penalty. It's your responsibility to identify your legal basis before collecting any personal data. GDPR gives individuals several important rights. They have the right to access their data, request corrections, and in some cases, request that their data be deleted, also known as the right to be forgotten. They can also object to certain kinds of data processing or ask you to restrict how their data is used. As a researcher, you must communicate these rights clearly during the consent process and be ready to uphold them if requested. If you're collecting personal data, even as a student, you are responsible for handling it properly. That means obtaining clear, written consent using ethical forms approved by your institution. You should also collect only what you need, store it securely, and restrict access to authorized team members. Where possible, anonymize the data and document your processes for transparency and institutional review. Data protection isn't something you add later. It should be built into your research from the beginning. Use secure digital platforms provided by your university. Avoid collecting identifiers unless absolutely necessary. Encrypt files, use password protection, and never store research data on personal devices or unsecured cloud platforms. Planning these details early helps ensure GDPR compliance and ethical integrity. Most funders and institutions now require a data management plan, or DMP, especially for projects involving personal data. In your DMP, describe what personal data you're collecting, how you'll secure it, who will have access, and how long the data will be retained. You should also specify how and when the data will be anonymized, archived, or deleted. A well-written DMP demonstrates your awareness of both data protection and long-term stewardship. Failing to comply with GDPR can lead to serious consequences. This includes institutional audits, the suspension of your research, rejection of publications, or even legal action in extreme cases. More importantly, it can undermine participant trust and the credibility of your work. Thankfully, GDPR compliance is achievable with careful planning, good documentation, and support from your ethics board or data protection office. Let's consider a real-world example. A PhD student is conducting interviews on mental health in graduate students. They use encrypted audio recording software, anonymize the transcripts before analysis, and provide participants the right to withdraw their data at any stage. This study received full ethics approval and was GDPR compliant from start to finish. This is a model of how thoughtful design can meet both ethical and legal standards. To summarize, GDPR applies to all research involving personal data, even academic and non-commercial projects. Always understand what data you're collecting, why it's necessary, and how it's being stored. Obtain clear, informed consent. Respect participants' rights throughout the process. Plan for security, anonymization, and data retention from the start, and document everything. When done properly, GDPR compliance builds trust, protects participants, and strengthens the integrity of your research. Thank you for watching this session on GDPR and research data. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to the channel for more data management guidance tailored to doctoral and postdoctoral researchers. And if you have specific questions about GDPR in your own research project, feel free to leave a comment below.